All right, welcome to episode 2 of GAA Sports Talk. I'm here with Craig Smith, and unfortunately Matt was not able to make this episode, or Colin. I'm not really sure where they are, what they're doing. How's it going, man? How are you?
Good, Alex. Next Sunday night here, ready to talk sports.
Okay, and so last week me and Matt touched on the playoffs and NHL coaching, GAA Sports, Canada-U.S. Soccer, the Jays, NBA playoffs, and Tim Tebow. So I was kind of hoping to avoid playoff talk, the NHL playoff talk, but I mean, since it's, the conference finals went so fast. How was the conference finals for you? What did you see in them? As it went along?
Mm-hmm.
Like, were you expecting the Pens to get swept in 4 games like that?
Nope.
Were you
not at all.
I don't think anybody was.
No, not at all. But you know what? You got to give Boston a lot of credit. They've lost 1 game since their kerfuffle with the Leafs.
Yeah.
And you also you're gonna laugh at this one, but you got to give the Ottawa Senators a little credit too. Despite them losing those last 2 games of their series with Pittsburgh by a lot, I think they took a lot out of the Penguins, and they were gassed against Boston, not expecting the team that they got.
Yeah. What about in the Western Conference Final with Chicago and LA? I mean, I saw Chicago go up 2-0, and I was like, uh-oh, here we go. Like, it's going to be, 5 games, 4 games, 5 games. And before we get to, I want to talk about what happened in the Pens-Bruins series. What did you think of that series and how it went?
The East or the West?
The West.
The West. You know what? You gotta give Chicago credit because they were the only team to beat LA at the Staples Center in the playoffs. And the Kings, it's almost impossible to repeat as champions in this day and age.
Yeah.
Even in a 48-game season and starting the season in January, it's just hard to do. It hasn't been done in almost 10 years now. So you got to give the Kings credit for even making it this far, and I had them in the Final Four.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think of the original 6 matchup, the Blackhawks and the Bruins, going into the Stanley Cup Stanley Cup Finals? Who do you think is going to take this one?
Gonna suck for you to hear this after seeing the Leafs in the first round almost eliminate the Boston Bruins, but the Bruins are just a tougher team all around. The Hawks have scoring, but in the playoffs, it's all about the body and taking out the opponent. The Bruins shut down Pittsburgh's top guys. They got 2 goals in the entire series. Crosby didn't get any points, and Malkin wasn't even seen either, other than a rare fight. So I think Boston's taking the Stanley Cup again.
You know what? I'm going to go against you. I'm going to go Chicago, and I'm going to go Chicago for the reason that I think that that Taves and Kane and Hossa and Sharp and all those guys are going to be too much for Boston to handle. I think Zdeno Chara, he's a giant of a hockey player, but I mean, when Vancouver and Chicago, let's go back a few years. Vancouver and Chicago in the playoffs, they were. Vancouver had a lot of trouble with Dustin Bufflin in front of them. I think Zdeno Chara is going to have a lot of trouble with Brian Bickle, and I think that's going to be how Brian Bickle plays, how the series is going to go. I think just because he's that big body, right?
Yeah, if Boston can shut down Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, they're going to be able to shut down Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves. But Brian Bickle in a contract year has been the most impressive Blackhawk I've seen on the ice, because Kane didn't even score until Game 4, got a hat-trick kill last night, but he was near non-existent, and Brian Bickle is everywhere. Shout out to Bowmanville, by the way, or Orno for him. he's in a contract year and he's performing, and if he's in front of the net, he's going to dig and he's going to get a goal. But Tuukka Rask is not going to be the pushover that Tomas Vokoun was and Marc-Andre Fleury at his worst is.
Yeah. All right. So, how many games do you think this series goes?
I'm hoping 6 after a short conference final. 6, hopefully, maybe 7.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's going to go 6 or 7 as well. I think it goes 7, and I think Chicago takes it on home ice. I think the Madhouse on Madison needs that cup win, because they did it last year, or last Stanley Cup that they were in. They did it in Philly, is when they won the cup. So I think someone needs to win it at home finally. I guess LA did last year, right?
Yeah, but it's always a lot better to win it at home.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's why I'm picking Boston in 6.
All right. Okay, so let's move on to NHL coaching again. The only reason I bring this up is because after, the season's been over for almost 2 months, Ralph Kruger out of the Edmonton Oilers gets fired. Unceremoniously almost. It was like, I listened to his interview on TSN today, and he was like, well, Craig McTavish told me to add him to Skype, and then it was like a 5-minute Skype call where he was just like, yeah, we're letting you go. And as soon as it happened, the rumors started to fly about Dallas Eakins going to Edmonton. So first, let's talk about Ralph Kruger and his stint. I mean, he only had a year there as a head coach. He was there for a couple of years as an associate coach, and he was talking to Craig McTavish about adding a coach, and now all of a sudden, they fire him. So what do you think sparked this?
Dallas Eakins must have been available to come to Edmonton, and Mac T must have been able to talk to him, must have been able to get him there. Kruger's stint, though, he almost put the Oilers back in the playoffs for the first time since they went to the Stanley Cup Final, and then, you know what? He didn't do a bad job, and not saying Dallas Eakins isn't going to do a much better one after his stint going to the Calder Cup Final and watching it bounce off a stanchion and out of his hand. But he's ready to coach in the NHL now, and a team with the youngsters that Edmonton has is probably a good fit for Dallas Eakins.
See, what I think, and this is Craig McTavish said this, where he was like, well, we were interviewing for associate coaches, and I realized that that I wanted, I was lining up a coach with my philosophies and not Ralph's, and so I just decided that it was time to line up a coach with my philosophies, and I think that's where the problem lies. I think Kruger should have been, interviewing his own coaches instead of having the general manager, because you're going to run into that problem where the general manager is going to want someone that has his own philosophies installed in the team. Yeah,
when you have a GM looking for coaches and he finds an awesome assistant coach but thinks, hey, Dallas Eakins is not going to mesh with Kruger, then you say goodbye to Kruger, because Dallas Eakins has a beautiful resume.
Yeah, and I mean, I talked about Dallas Eakins going to Colorado last week, and I was like, he would do well with a good team. He basically helped. He's the reason the Leafs got into the playoffs this year. I mean, he helped develop, Jake Gardiner and Nazem Kadri and all these young guys that were playing with the team this year. So I think going into Edmonton with a young squad, and as long as he gets the veterans on his side, he'll have no problem, getting Taylor Hall and Jordan Eberle and all those guys, rocking in the same direction.
When you're with an AHL club, you got those young guys coming up, and you got those older guys that are on the way out. So he's already has that sort of team and stuff. He's brought them again to the Calder Cup Finals, and he's got a great club to look forward to in Edmonton as well.
Yeah. Okay, let's let's move right along here. Let's talk about the NHL competition committee, the rule changes. It's said that they're going to suggest grandfathering visors in after Mark Stahl's eye injury. There was hybrid icing talk. There was a couple other minor things they talked about. But let's start with mandatory visors. What do you think about implementing mandatory visors?
Visors are needed. They grandfathered helmets in a long time ago, and McTavish was the last one not to have a helmet on.
Mm-hmm.
But you need those visors, and whether they're half shields, full shields, or the jaw cages that Sidney Crosby's right now. You can't watch hockey and see those kinds of injuries again when you know they're preventable.
Well, especially with so many kids and so many parents turning away from the sport with all these head injuries and things happening. I look at Taylor Hall's injury last year where he got stepped on by a skate, and I think they should start wearing helmets in warm-up as well instead of going out there without them, because it's a dangerous spot to be in when you're not wearing a helmet. And there's guys that are 200 pounds that can move as fast as the NHL players can. As for the visors, I think they should have done this a long time ago. I think all the players should wear them. It's like a catch-22 almost, because it's not going to stop you from everything. And I had a visor break on me this year by a puck. It had it hit me in the face, I probably would have lost. It was right on the bridge of my nose. So I would have broken my nose and probably both my orbital bones, and I would have been fucked for it. And I watched a guy get a puck in the face a couple years ago, and he had like $20,000 worth of dental work done. So it's not going to protect everything, but at the same time it will give them that protection, especially from high sticks. But if the sticks go under it, right, there's nothing to stop them from going underneath the visor as well.
No, it's not going to stop the freak accidents, but it's going to stop the pucks in the face. And it's going to deter us away from missing some key milestone moments. For instance, if Marcel didn't get hit in the eye, we would have seen the New York Rangers versus the Carolina Hurricanes. It would have been Mark Stahl versus Jordan, Jared, and Eric all in one game. And that would have been an NHL game that everyone would have liked to watch.
Although Jared's not playing with them, is he?
He was when Carolina played against New York late in the season.
Really?
He did.
I didn't think he was playing in the NHL yet.
He played one game.
Oh, well,
that was against the Rangers.
That must have been because it was against the Rangers.
It was Jay Stahl, and E. Stahl, all on the Hurricanes.
Wow. I didn't know he had made his NHL debut. That's surprising.
Yeah.
Okay, and so what about let's move on to minor hockey and let's start with banning European goalies in the CHL. This has been talked about by the commissioner of the CHL, the Canadian Hockey League that governs Western Hockey League, Ontario Hockey League, and the Quebec Major Junior League. And they're talking about banning European goalies because if you look at Canada's World Junior team, they haven't had the same level of goaltending that they've had in years past. I think the last top-notch goalie they've had was Carey Price. Since then, it's been a downward spiral for goaltending, and now, for the first time, the Canadian World Junior team was out of the medals in, I think, 13 years, or something ridiculous, it wasn't directly because of the goalies, but it was, that was the reason was because of the goalies. So what do you think about banning European goalies? And will it help development?
No. You can't ban European goalies in the CHL. You want a league that is competitive in itself. You can't just ban European goalies so that Hockey Canada has better selection come World Junior time. The CHL is supposed to be the up-and-coming stars of the future, and if you ban goalies, you won't get to see stars like Peter Mrazek of the Czech Republic that was on the Ottawa 67 last year. And he stole the show at the World Juniors when he played there. But
the theory is they they have this like export draft where they draft. I don't know how many rounds it goes. I think it only goes 1 or 2, but they draft these European players to come over and play. They can, and this is why we have an outlawed league too, is because in Hockey Canada you can only have 2 foreigners on your team, right? Like 2 Europeans or Russians on your team, right? They have to be mainly, and the outlawed league is more. You can have as many.
The outlawed league is like all European.
Yeah, yeah, and so I don't know if it's gonna be. I don't know if it's a good idea or it's a bad idea, because you have these players, like these Europeans that are coming over, and the way they explained it was Ron Tudnut, the goalie coordinator for Hockey Canada, explained it. He was like, well, you're bringing over these 19, 20-year-old European goalies, and your 17 and 18-year-old Canadian or American goalies aren't playing because they're losing their spots to these older goalies, and then by the time the Canadians and Americans are 18 or 19, they aren't ready to start, so they bring over another European goalie who's 19 or 20, and so the Canadian goalies never really develop, or the American goalies never really develop into starters in the CHL. And I kind of agree with them. Besides like Malcolm Subban and Mark Vincentine, there isn't really any all-star quality goalies in the CHL right now. Most of them are Russian or European. And we need to start developing Canadians. That's what the CHL, it's the Canadian Hockey League. We need to develop, homegrown talent.
Well, if it's the Canadian Hockey League, then why do you have Erie and Saginaw and Portland? Like, it just doesn't make sense that you start to outlaw European goalies. Like, the men's national team is going to have a lot of trouble coming associated if the NHL decides yes, because you have Roberto Luongo and Marc-Andre Fleury, who are falling off the wayside right now.
Carey Price.
You have Mike Smith, who doesn't really make it. Yeah, Carey Price is the same, just falling off. You put Peter Grudai in Montreal. And Mike Smith from Phoenix, who barely has played, other than last year, making it to conference finals, hasn't played much playoff hockey or under pressure hockey.
But that's what they're talking about, is they want to develop Canadian goalies so that they have a strong Canadian goalie. And the last couple of Vezina winners weren't Canadian. Like, there hasn't been, other than, Luongo and Marc-Andre Fleury and Carey Price, there isn't really anybody beyond that. Mike Smith, he had one good year, but how many NHLers have we seen have just one good year, right, and then fall off the wayside?
Mm-hmm. But to ban them outright in the CHL is a little bit extreme, I think. Put a cap on. You have a cap on overagers. Can't you put a cap on foreigners or
there is a cap on
foreigners out of town?
It's 2 players per team.
In the CHL?
Yeah, in all of all junior hockey, you can only have 2 foreigners per team. So that includes like not major junior, but like tier 2 and junior B and junior.
No, that's what I mean. I mean like OHL.
Yeah.
And
major junior can only have 2 players, 2 foreign players, not foreign, but not North American players.
North American.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they can have like 6 American players, but they can only have 2 Russians or whatever.
Okay.
So that's
I wouldn't bring that number down just to get more Canadian goalies coming up, because you want the competition level there at the level. You want people to come out to OHL games. You want people to fill the GM Center in Oshawa, brighten up the Scotiabank place in Ottawa. And you can't do that if you don't have stellar goaltending. Goaltending wins championships, and if you're not getting it from homegrown Canadians,
so what do you think they should do? What do you think they should do to bring up those homegrown goalies?
You know what? Hockey Canada, you have your under 17, you have your under 21, you have these tournaments every year that you can use to help grow a goalie. Right now, you do have Malcolm Subban. You don't need to elsewhere, but you need to, Hockey Canada needs to be the ones that are actually helping them grow. You can't always turn to the CHL. That's the step below the NHL. It's not like you're going to go to the NHL and say, you know what, we can't have Russian goalies because Team Canada won't have any guys to play on the Olympic team.
Yeah. Well, like, I think they've got to start doing something to, you know, and really the first thing they have to do is get rid of Ron Tugnutt. I mean, you know, he wasn't the best NHL goalie or anything, and I know you can't teach talent, but you can teach preparation and other things, right? And Ron Tugnutt, I mean, he was a bit of a head case when he played. So anything he really says, you know, you got to take with a grain of salt, because the way he played, I mean, he had a couple fights, he did, you know, things that were really unorthodox. So I think having someone more solid in the fold is important to developing the goalie. Someone they're actually going to listen to, because if I was a goalie, I wouldn't listen to Ron Tugnutt, because I think he's crazy. He scares me.
Well, he scares you into a talent, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
And who else is available, really? Patrick Waugh's got a new job. He can't come and help out. I don't know what Ed Belfour's up to right now.
Ed Belfour's old. Francis Allaire, I mean, there's
Ron Tugnutt's not?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, old and washed up, that's how it goes. When you can't do, you teach, right?
Exactly.
So, okay. What else? So we have, let's while we're talking about, you know, not the NHL, let's talk about Hockey Canada banning body checking in Peewee hockey. So Peewee hockey is 11 and 12 years old. Up to this year, they've always been able to hit. Now, because of head injuries and because of other issues, they're taking body checking out of Peewee hockey. Before, I know the OMHA for a long time, for about 10 years, had a trial run of having body checking in Atom hockey. They stopped the trial run, and now they're back. And now they're just, Hockey Canada's banning Peewee hockey across the board. What do you think is, you know, not the reason, but, you know, how do you think it's going to affect the game at that level and up, because they're not allowed to hit?
Well, it won't be that bad right now, or in 2 years, rather. But the 11 and 12-year-olds that have been hitting this season are going to have a tough time next season, or the 11-year-olds, rather, because it's out of the game. It's going to cut down injuries, because 11 or 12 and right in that age group when everyone's a different size, everyone's a different height.
Yeah, but it's the same in Bantam, when they're all still, I mean, there's still such a size differential in Bantam. It's not as bad as Bantam, which is 13 and 14, but, I mean, it's still there, right? And go ahead.
It's still there, but Peewee is bad. I don't agree with taking it out. First of all, you got to learn at some point.
Yeah.
If you want to go anywhere, and if you're just learning in Bantam, and then you go to midget, you have, 4 years before you're OHL eligible, and then you have to get
3 years before you're OHL eligible.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you're going to get used to skating with your head down as you get bigger, and then that's just going to cause more problems and more injuries, because then when you get into midget, for example, I mean, beyond AAA and cities, I mean, small towns, their 15-year-olds play with their, 17-year-old kids, and don't tell me there's not a size differential, because when I was 15, I was small shit, and I'm still pretty small. But I'm bigger now than when I was at 15. So playing against 17-year-olds, I mean, they're going to get hurt no matter what happens. And it comes down to, for me, it comes down to coaching and how players are coached in checking, and the mandate for right now in hockey and in body checking, and it starts right with the NHL and goes down, is you're trying to hurt your opponent, right? You're going out there to hurt your opponent. You're not going out there to, and the reason body checking is allowed is to remove your opponent from the puck, to gain puck possession. But I mean, now everyone's looking at the big hit and trying to kill their opponents.
Yeah, you said it exactly right. Body checking is actually there to gain control of the puck, and that's why we have interference penalties. And the concussion problems that they are having at the Peewee level right across the country, which is abnormal because I say we, but Hockey Canada and the OMHA have put in the checking the head rules and the penalties and the game misconduct, but it's just not working.
I have an issue with that rule. I had an issue with that rule when it was right now it's a 2, a 4, or a 5, and before it was 2 and 10 or 5 in a game, and it's just the way it's worded. It's worded really funny because before it was like, it's all about intention, and I mean you can't tell a player's intention, right? Not when it happens at a fast pace. So it's worded a little better now, where it's like indirect or direct or did he try to hurt the player? But at the same, like, it's so hard to tell sometimes, and when they're moving at that fast pace. So it's sometimes it's really obvious, and you're like, oh well, that's a 4. Oh, he punched him in the chest, but he glided up, so I guess that's 2. But again, it starts with coaching and parenting, really. There's no respect in hockey anymore. There's no respect in sports. And if you go to a local rink and you watch the way the parents treat the opposing parents, and the coaches treat the opposing players and coaches, and the referees and whoever else, there's just no respect right across the board. And it's an embarrassment to not only minor hockey, but it's an embarrassment to Canada. For where I live, we have these tournaments where they bring in foreign teams, and foreign parents. From the States, they're awful, but that's because Darian Hatcher and what's his name? I forget his name. He was a fighter in the NHL though. But Darian Hatcher coached one of the teams this year, and he had the most respectful parents, and I think he just scared the shit out of them, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't have that respect going from the Canadian coaches. They don't have that respect. They don't have that respect from the parents. Then a kid sees that and they're going, oh, well, my parents do it, so I guess I'm allowed to do it too, right? Which it starts at the top and it works its way down. And if coaches are teaching their players how to hit properly, then we wouldn't have this issue. We would still have concussions because it is a physical game, and bodies do get banged even at the lowest levels of novice, tyke, and atom. But if coaches are teaching them how to hit properly and how to skate properly, then it wouldn't be an issue.
You're exactly right, Alex. It starts from the top and it works its way down to kids. But if you get 2 years off coaching hitting, it's going to cause the problem.
Your audio's cutting out.
Memorial Cup Final.
You're going to have to repeat that. Your audio cut out a little bit there.
Let's try that. All I said was I agree with you that it starts its way down. And if you take out the 2 years of hitting coaching, then it's going to cause a problem when someone is in a Memorial Cup Final. They're going to get tossed around.
Yeah, and it's not hard to become a coach in minor hockey. It's really not. They're looking for coaches, and all you have to do is attend a clinic where they're like, and attend a speak out clinic, which is like anti-bullying stuff, and then apply. And then if you're more likely to get it if you have a kid in that age group, and then you're coaching your kid. And they don't have to be the smartest. They don't have to take a hockey IQ test. They don't have to do anything like that. And then that causes a problem because they don't know the rules of the game. They don't know, maybe they played the game when they were younger, but they don't know the game at a high level, and it hurts hockey overall.
It does, but you're not going to find 20 coaches per level per county to do that. So
I don't know. It sucks, and it's going to make hockey a lot more boring this year, especially for me, when I ref, and I don't ref a lot of games under. I didn't ref a lot of games this year under Peewee, but at the Peewee level, it was fun to watch the kids try to hit each other because they'd line up a big hit and then they'd both knock down or something. But Yeah, I'm not looking forward to it for sure. And I mean,
I got that at Bantam.
I told someone earlier or a couple weeks ago when they officially announced it, I was like, why don't we just bubble wrap everybody and just get it over with? I mean, that's the way the world's going anyway. And I talked to my girlfriend about this actually, where we were watching something, and I was like, well, you're just going to be one of those overprotective mothers, right, that babies their kid all the way through, and she's going to hate me for saying that if she's still awake.
She's still watching.
Yeah. I don't know if she is. She said she was going to fall asleep, so she'll catch this on YouTube later.
Hopefully she skips past that part.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's move on and let's talk about some retirements. Andy MacDonald announced his retirement, and this kind of goes with the concussion issue we were talking about, where, I mean, he's had last couple years he had a bad history with concussions, and he talked about, not knowing, what was going to happen with that next hit or next game. So what do you think about his retirement? He's a Stanley Cup champion from 2007, and he's only 35 years old, so he had a few good years left, you would think.
Yeah, you would think he'd have a few good years. You look at Jaromir Jagr, who's 42. You look at Daniel Alfredsson, who's 41. You think Andy MacDonald is still well ahead of where those two guys were pretty much when they were 35. But hockey's a game. It's not going to be your life in 5 years. Mm-hmm. So why would he go out there and play out there worried for every single hit if he's not going to be able to live the next 20 years of his life not in a wheelchair?
Yeah,
or something like that.
That's true. I mean, it's sad to see him go. I mean, I had there's I have a family friend who's his cousin, and so it's definitely sad to see Andy MacDonald retire. But at the same time, you're right. I mean, hockey's not going to be your life forever, so why not just move on now before something seriously hurts his future and his future endeavors?
Exactly, and he has a Stanley Cup ring. What else do you need?
Yeah, well, a couple more. I mean,
a couple more would be nice, but St. Louis didn't make the playoffs, so.
Yeah, well, no, yes, it did.
No, well, St. Louis lost in 6. Can't beat the defending champs. Yeah. But
all right,
you know what? He had a good career, and moving on is something he needs to do at this point. His contract was up, I believe. So why sit and sign one-year contracts for 5 years when you can go live your life and not be afraid every day you go to work?
Mm-hmm. And moving on and doing other things like coaching your kids or something along those lines, right? Like obviously hockey, you're not going to play in the NHL forever. I mean, not even Gordie Howe could do it, who played well past 50. So,
yeah.
I mean, I think Jaromir Jagr's done after this year. If they win the Cup, I think he calls it a career. He's, like you said, he's like 42 years old.
Yeah, why not?
Let's move on to a Canadian legend. He was a diving superstar. He came out when he was 13 years old. He's only 26. He announced his retirement this week. Alexandre Despatie. I don't know what to say about this guy. I mean, he's 26. He's only 26 years old. He's been to multiple Olympics. He's won multiple medals at every height that they jump at. I'm really sad to see this guy go. I watched him in London. I've watched him in Beijing. And as far back as he was competing, I remember watching him. And he was a Canadian legend. He's a Canadian, diving legend, and he will always be. What do you think about this retirement?
Well, I can't say I saw this one coming. He does have that history of neck problems, and he almost had to miss the London Games.
Yeah.
He was injured leading up to it and smacked his skull off the diving board, which is not pretty. He's moving on. I don't know if you know, he's going to be hosting breakfast television in Montreal. So that's where he's going.
Yeah.
He was almost a guarantee for some sort of hardware to leave the Olympics around the Canadians' neck, and it does hurt the Canadian team for sure. But then you got Jennifer Heil and the other younger Canadian, her partner, in duos that can go for it. But Alexandre Despatie was definitely and is definitely a Canadian diving hero.
Yeah, and I think he'll be remembered for a long time. I think he comes back and helps him coach for the next Olympics that's coming up, and I hope he does. I hope he passes on his experience to younger divers. And I didn't know that he was moving on to breakfast television. That's kind of, I mean, what else is he going to do? But
Kevin Frankish of Montreal. That's what he will be.
At 26 years old, I mean, he's still really young. So I know he had neck problems, and I knew he did almost miss the Olympics. But I mean, you expect him to come back. I thought he was going to go for at least another one. So it does surprise me that he's not coming back, and I'm concerned about Canadian. We're not the best, at the Summer Olympics, so I'm concerned, for what's going to happen with the Summer Olympics, and especially with swimming and diving, and where we weren't, where we're not a contender every year, which he was, and like you said, he was a contender for a medal every year. And to be missing out on that, I think is going to hurt Canada's chances at the next Olympics to improve on what we did in London a couple years ago.
It will definitely hurt our chances in men's diving, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But then you just got to hope that the relay team doesn't step on the line, and then we're okay on the medal count.
And, what we placed, talking about the Olympics, what we placed wrestling, was it wrestling that got knocked out? Was it golf?
It was wrestling got knocked out for 2020. Yeah. However, they put in a bid, and it's still in the running against to stay in 2020. It's still in the running against baseball and softball combo, and then squash.
See, I don't think baseball and softball should be in the Olympics, because if you can't send your best athletes, why have it in the Olympics? I mean, the best baseball players in the world will be playing in Major League Baseball, and they won't be stopping their season like an NHL season does to play in the Olympics. So I disagree with putting softball and baseball in there. What replaced it originally? Do you know?
Replace what? Wrestling?
Yeah.
Nothing yet. Nothing yet. The wrestling is still in for 2016, I believe. It was going to be taken out of the 2020 program, but they're still debating it.
Yeah. Okay, so we've covered NHL, we've covered some retirements. Let's move on to Raptors, and there's a couple things I want to talk about with them. They named their new GM. He was an assistant GM for Brian Colangelo. I'm going to say this wrong. It's Masai Ujiri.
Masai Ujiri.
Masai Ujiri. There you go. Is the new GM in Toronto as for the Raptors. What do you think about Brian Colangelo's firing? Let's start with that. I mean, he kind of gets fired, but he's like, oh, well, you can keep your job in a different role.
He got Brian Burke. That's what he did. Because that's MLSC's way of saying goodbye. Just, we'll give you a different job, but we don't want you running the team anymore. And Masai Ujiri is the executive of the year with the NBA and the Denver Nuggets. So he's letting him go, basically.
Why would you,
like they did with their coach up there, too.
As the Denver Nuggets, why would you let him walk away like that? I mean, his contract wasn't up, was it?
I don't believe so, and neither were their coaches, I don't believe, and he's gone. He was the coach of the year.
That baffles me.
No, I don't know if it's ever happened in the Big Four sports that you're GM of the year or executive of the year and coach of the year both win, but both aren't back the next season.
Yeah, see that? I mean, that's almost as unheard of as trading your manager like the Jays did. I mean, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I don't know why he would want to leave Denver. not see it through. I mean, he had the team. They were not contender, like they were contenders. They made the playoffs. But they weren't, serious contenders. And same with the coach. Like, why would you leave something that you're building to come to something that needs to be reconstructed completely?
Well, the coach hasn't come yet. I don't know if he will. I don't think he will be in Toronto. But Ujiri, he was part of the Toronto head office from 2007 to 2010.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he is going to bring too much to the team, but he built Denver and brought them out of the slums and brought them in the playoffs. So that's what they're hoping. And Lewinsky, forget his first name right now, but he's in MLSE's office, and he's going to attract some names to all four of those teams.
Let's talk about Lewinsky, who comes from LA and helping LA build, at least the LA Kings build a championship team.
And the Galaxy.
And the Galaxy. What does he bring to Toronto, to MLSE, as a president and CEO?
Well, he obviously brings experience. He brought in is it Lombardi in Lombardi in LA. They go and win a Stanley Cup, and he brought in the GM of the Galaxy, and they go and win 2 MLS championships, I believe.
So do you think Dave Notice is gone as Maple Leaf GM? Or do you think that he gives Notice a chance?
He'll give Notice a chance. He'll give Notice a chance. So, and obviously Notice deserves a chance. He rode Brian Burke's coattails of a team into the Stanley Cup playoffs. But I don't see Lewinsky firing people on a team that is on the way out. Yeah. And the Leafs are on the way up.
Yeah, that's true.
You might want to do something with the Raptors, which he's doing, and you might want to do something with TFC because they still haven't made the playoffs.
Yeah, the only thing they had really was the Canadian Soccer Championship, which they didn't end up winning this year. So I mean, they don't even have that anymore, which is sad for them.
Well, there's only 3 teams in what FC Edmonton was in the Final Four this year, so that's not even a big accomplishment, really.
Yeah, that's true. So let's go to the other Raptors talk that they've been spinning around for the last week. Raptors are going to be rebranded, or they're making new uniforms, something along those lines. What do you think they're going to be called if they do get rebranded, and why are they doing this now?
Don't do it. One, the Raptors it's a great name, and by far I would put it up there in the upper echelon of the Big Four sports. It's a great name, despite the fact that I don't know really dinosaur history, but I don't know how many Raptors were around Toronto. But it's a great name. Great colors, great look.
They changed.
They were
colors.
thinking Huskies. They should go back to purple. Go back to purple and black. But
the
red and black is.
The funny thing is when they were purple and black, and this was before the Toronto FC came into the picture. The 4 major sports in Toronto, the CFL, the NHL, the MLB, and the NBA, all 4 were all a different shade of blue, if you didn't know that. And then the Raptors changed their colors to red because Vancouver Grizzlies left, and now they're supposed to be like Canada's team. And this is where I wish I had Matt on to talk about how what it's like in Calgary with the Raptors and how they're perceived out there. Do you know how are they perceived in Ottawa?
Basketball, we have the best university team in the country every year, hands down, in Carleton. But I don't see basketball talked about that much. When I'm sportscasting there, I'm not talking about the Raptors as often as I'm talking about. I would talk about the Leafs more than I'd talk about the Raptors, and I would definitely talk about the Jays before I would talk about the Raptors in Ottawa. They are getting an MBL of Canada franchise there starting in September, and I'm sure you've all heard the grumblings over the original name of the Ottawa Tomahawks.
MBL?
Yeah, the National Basketball League of Canada.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
yeah.
I didn't know that there was a National Basketball League of Canada. Shows you how much I follow basketball, right?
It's a pretty young league.
Yeah.
It's got not even 10 teams. It's got more teams than the CFL already, though. But they're from London out to Summerside, PEI right now.
Okay.
Ottawa starting in October.
Okay, so let's move on. We have about 15 minutes before I want to wrap this up. Let's move on to the CFL, and this one will be quick. Chris Williams, who was I believe he was the running back of he played in Hamilton for the Ticats, and I know he was on their special teams. He was he went to an arbiter to see if he could get out of his contract with the Ticats, so to supposedly pursue contract talks with NFL teams. And the arbiter said, no, what do you think about players trying to leave the CFL for the NFL? And then we'll talk about Chris Williams specifically.
Well, the NFL is where all the football players want to go, and they should.
Yeah.
It's the number one league for football, and the CFL should just be thankful that Williams is playing for their league for as long as he did, and let him go if he can sign.
Yeah, and I always thought there was a clause in the CFL contracts where they were like, well, if you get signed by an NFL contract, I guess we have to let you go, right? Kind of like if there's a clause in NHL contracts where if they they cut players or they let players send players down, the Europeans have to go back to Europe if their rights aren't owned in the CHL. So it disappoints me because Chris Williams was one of the better players in the CFL this year, and he set a record. But like you said, the NFL is the best league in the world for football, and the CFL is the second best, and they get all the cast-offs from the CFL anyway, or from the NFL anyway. Like all the players, they have their draft, and all the players basically that don't get drafted by the CF or the NFL kind of just end up in the CFL.
Yeah, I don't know if CFL is second best, but it's up there. I don't know what they got going on in Europe, but
come on, in Europe they still call soccer football. Like they don't.
Well, yeah, but they still have American football leagues in Europe, or they might just turn them into rugby players or something. But you know what? You said it right. There should be a contract or a clause in every contract that says if I get signed or an offer from the NFL, I should go there. Mm-hmm. And it's just like some NFL players have a clause in their contract. If you're going to cut me or send me down, I have rights, or a CFL team has rights to me. Like Tim Tebow's rights are owned by the Montreal Alouettes.
See, I don't think the NFL has like a tier 2 like the NHL does, like an AHL or anything. I think it's just like the NFL. I know the NBA created a league like that was like a tier 2 league, so that they didn't have to cut.
No, Alex, that's the WNBA.
No, there's actually there's a tier 2. There's a developmental NBA league.
Yeah, the D League.
Yeah, okay, it's called the D League. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that from playing NBA on Xbox. That's how I know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and if he wants to go to the NFL, like let him go, right? Like there's no point in trying to stop him. If he can make more money, that's what playing sports is all about, is trying to make the most money. Right?
Well, if he's going to go to the NFL and make more money, he probably will make enough money to buy out his contract with Hamilton.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't think the Tiger Cats are going to stop him if he gets a big offer from
They are
NFL.
stopping him, though. They refuse to let him go.
Then I'm sure his agent will find a way out.
Yeah,
if he's a good agent.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, so let's move on to our last topic of the evening, MLB doping. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the week of last week, Anthony Bosch, who is the co-founder of Biogenesis in Miami, has reportedly talked to and signed an affidavit with the MLB saying that he was supplying players with steroids, and those players include Ryan Braun, Alex Rodriguez, and I think there's like a list of 22 or 24 names on this thing. MLB doping, baseball doping has been around for so long. It feels like they're just fighting a losing battle here. They should just let them dope, right?
I don't think they should let them, and I think that this list is dated. It's a little old. It's not like it's current right now because Alex Rodriguez doesn't need any drugs right now. He's sitting on a bench anyway. One of the names on there, Melky Cabrera, he's already sat games for doping. I don't think he should sit anymore unless there's proof that he's done it since they caught him.
The MLB ruling, too, is what they're saying is they're treating it like it's a second positive test. So the first positive test requires 50-game suspension. The second one requires 100 games. And so they're treating it for like Alex Rodriguez and Ryan Braun as their second positive, right? Like their first positive would be lying, and then lying about their affiliation with Anthony Bosch, and then their second would be being caught or whatever. And I think I don't agree with suspending players for 100 games just because someone says they were doping. That's like me going up to Bud Selig, who's the commissioner, and being like, well, I saw Batista doping and R.A. Dickey doping, and so it's my word against theirs, right? Like if they don't have any evidence other than this guy's testimony, I don't think there should be anything, because it's a classic case of he said, she said. Basically.
But you know what, Tony Bosch, he provided the drugs to these guys, and he has probably more evidence than just the list. And it's not a he said, she said. He said it, and he gave them the drugs.
Yeah, but is there any other evidence other than his word, right? Like,
well, I'm sure they visited him in the clinic.
Yeah, but they've been trying to get him to say something, and it's kind of like the Lance Armstrong thing, where finally he just gave up, right, and was like, oh right, whatever. If you say I dope,
well then
you say I dope, and that's a bad example, but you know what I'm saying.
Then just stick
right?
Oprah on all of them. Just get Oprah to go and talk to all of them, and then we'll know.
Yeah, that's true. Because I haven't watched that interview actually with Oprah.
It's apparently in the first 2 minutes anyway, so there's no point in watching the full 3 hours of Lance Armstrong.
It was a 3-hour interview.
It's 2 parts.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know what? Have you read Lance? Now that we're on this topic, have you read Lance Armstrong's books?
No. No, I haven't.
I read his first one. His first one's really good. Had I known he doped at the time,
maybe it's all a lie.
Yeah, maybe. Well, you know what? They've tested his blood, and and his heart. His heart beats harder than pretty much anyone they've ever discovered, right? Like he's got it's not like he has a high heart rate. It's that his heart's just so much stronger than everybody else's, and that's been scientifically proven. Right? Like he was made for long distance running or long distance biking or whatever. Like that's how.
Yeah, All I care about is I've won as many Tour de France titles as Lance Armstrong. So.
Yeah, according to official record, but
yeah, exactly.
Wow. Okay, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Nope. Anyone out there watching can follow me on Twitter if they want at 1310Craig. That's it.
You weren't supposed to do that, were you?
Why not?
Didn't your boss say not to?
It's my personal Twitter.
Oh, okay.
It's fine.
Okay. I'm not.
You gonna edit this conversation out later? You weren't. Yeah.
You weren't. Yeah.
No, they can follow me.
They can follow you. Okay, so I'll link your Twitter down in the chat. My final words will have to be get a better computer, because we'd had technical difficulties, Craig, at the start of the show where your computer
it's going to Best
on.
Buy. It's going to Best. I'll bring it to Best Buy tomorrow.
Okay, you better, because I don't want to have these difficulties again. To future guests, if you're not going to make the show, please tell me ahead of time, a.k.a. Matt Loader. I know you're going to be watching this, so I'm going to call you out on it. He bailed on me at last minute, didn't tell me that he was not going to show up, so this is why it is only me and Mr. Smith tonight. We were supposed to have Matt joining us, but apparently he's too good for us. How does that make you feel?
It makes me upset.
Okay, if you like the channel, please hit follow down below. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. We only have 2 subscribers. I think we only had like 40, 50 views on the first video anyway. So
this one will get more because I'm on it.
Are you going to promote it more, buddy?
Hey, I shared it on Facebook.
I know you did. I don't know who else watched it. We only had like 1 comment or something on YouTube for the last video before this. So I think this was a good show. Okay, so remember, hit the follow button below. It will update you when I update the channel to show when the next episode will be. It'll either be a week from now, 2 weeks from now. We haven't decided, but I will put up something on the channel. I'll try to link something else also in the YouTube channel as well. I'll figure out how to do that later. I might just make a video, a quick, hey, this is when the show is going to be, a quick video like that. Alright, so that's it for tonight. Thank you for tuning in to GAA Sports Talk, and we'll see you guys next week. Stop.